He knows better than I do.
I don't want to check that I got it right, that he wanted me to wait. Okay, we go by the principle that better a little with meaning than a lot without, and I think you often find with these kinnos, still don't know what the word is in English, so I must have a good word. No? Okay.
Energy.
Pardon?
Energy.
Elegies, that's not bad, elegies, these elegies that people say a lot of them, but they're difficult Hebrew and people don't really know what it is and what they mean and what they're saying, and it's much more meaningful to say less but with real meaning and genuine feeling than to say more, without. So, this is the same word, kiness, because the same thing, same. No, because with superficial things we need changes. We look for a variety. You can't eat the same chocolate cake every day. You want something a bit different. You need a different dinner every night. But with deep things, spiritual things, the opposite's true. Repetition is what creates depth. If you're going to go deeper, you're going to feel more connected, you need to repeat the same things over and over and over again, not say something new every time. You say something new, you don't have the same feeling, you don't have the same connection. We don't immediately connect to new things. So that's why we do the same things over and again. We Jews seem a little obsessed with the past. We talk all the time about the coming out of Egypt. We're constantly referring to our history, our festivals, all relate to historical events. And Tisha B'Av, perhaps most of all, seems obsessed with the past, seems obsessed with our history. Tisha B'Av is about feeling the pain of Jewish history. As I said last night, just plain and simple, pain. In that way it's kind of easy for people because everybody knows how to feel pain. But it's a pain that's meant to make you feel connected. That's the purpose of the pain. When we talk about our history of who we are as a nation, when we feel a sense of the history of the nation, we feel a sense of connection to the people. We share the good times together, we share the joyous times, we share Pesach, the coming out of Egypt, we share the giving of the Torah and Shavuos, and we share the pain together as well. We share the suffering of the Jewish people. And I think in a way, it's easier to connect through the pain, it's easier to connect to Jewish history through the pain because it's more powerful, the feeling is more intense, there's a stronger sense of connectedness. But the point is that we feel the pain of the past so that we can connect right now. Tisha B'Av is not looking to the past, it's looking to the now. It's in the present moment. We want the pain of what's happened to give us a feeling of connection as we sit here today. And I remember when my wife Ilana, Rabbi Shaul, was diagnosed with cancer, I couldn't eat. And if anyone's had an experience like that before, it was such an overwhelming shock, such an overwhelming experience. I didn't eat for the whole day. I didn't eat she was diagnosed in the afternoon. I didn't eat that evening. I couldn't face food. Couldn't eat anything. The next day I didn't eat, and the next day it was Erev Yom Kippur. I didn't eat the whole day. We came to the meal before Yom Kippur. I knew it was Yom Kippur coming up. I figured I got to eat something. I forced myself to have a bowl of soup. The whole of Yom Kippur I fasted, and I wasn't hungry at the end of it. That's kind of what Tisha B'Av is about. You just get lost in the experience of the moment. When you feel pain so intensely, food is irrelevant. You don't want to eat. You can't face eating. It just doesn't matter. It's too petty. It's too small. It's too insignificant. It's too worldly when you get lost in the feeling of the moment. The pain takes over and nothing else matters. All the distractions are gone and you're here right now. That's what Tisha B'Av does. It's a beautiful, beautiful experience if you able to touch it, is that the pain takes away the distractions and the confusions and the crazinesses of the world. Nothing else matters. All that goes. You just sit here in the present moment and feel that sense of connection. It's just me and Hashem. It's just me and God. And all the rest is gone and all the rest has disappeared. That's what it's about. We say in Psalms, I am with him in his pain. That when in a certain way, I'm with him in pain, that when we feel pain, God is with us. Not because God is kind and comes to visit us when we're suffering, but when we feel pain and all the distractions go, all we feel is a connection to God. That's all that's left. That's all that's there. In a certain way, it's taught, you would think, well, the standard meaning is that I'm with him, I'm with the human being in pain. To me, it's the other way around. I am with him, I am with God in pain. When we suffer, when we feel pain, we feel God's presence. Because all the barriers that confuse us in normal times drop away. It's just us and him. That's what Tisha B'Av is about. It's about feeling God's presence. It's about feeling a sense of connection to God in an incredibly deep way that only pain seems to bring us. The rabbis say that when in the temple, in the first temple, when we had the ark, there were angels on top of the ark, and they faced each other. And they say a miracle happened, that when the Jewish people were close to God and had a strong relationship with God, the angels faced each other. But when the Jewish people turned away from God, the angels turned their backs to each other and would go into the Holy of Holies, and they would have their backs turned to each other. It was a miraculous event. It says that when they came into the Holy of Holies, when the Babylonians came into the Holy of Holies, destroying the temple, at a time when God was distant from the Jewish people, seemingly, because the temple was destroyed, the Talmud tells us that the angels were embracing. They were closer than ever. Because at that time of pain, when all of our distractions disappear and all the things that seem important to us go away, there's only one thing left, and that is the human soul, that all it yearns for and all it wants is connection to God. What's the pain that we're looking at here? What's the pain that we want to be touched by? So there's no question that starting out, the thing that we focus on is the pain of the temple. The pain of the fact that our temple was destroyed twice. And more than that, though, if you look at the history of it, the Romans were the most brutal empire in the history of the world. And there were some pretty brutal empires around, but the Romans take the prize, I think, for the most brutal of all. When they destroyed the temple and the period leading up to it, tens of thousands of Jews were crucified. Crucifixion is not a very pleasant way to die. They were tortured. The starvation in Jerusalem. And Josephus says that the Romans allowed dead bodies out of Jerusalem at one point during the siege. They brought 150,000 bodies out, he says, of people who died of starvation. And that was just in one period, just in one particular time during the siege, when they allowed some bodies to come out. The mass slaughter of the Romans, of women, of children. They say up to a million Jews died when the temple was destroyed, when the Romans destroyed the temple. The percentage-wise of the nation, that was a much bigger percentage than the Holocaust. Much more significant event. It was a long time ago, and it's hard for us to connect to because there's so much time in between. But as I said last night as well, there was more than that. When the temple was destroyed, a sense of the Jewish order was destroyed. The Jewish people. We say in the Kinnot, and it says in Eicha that people didn't believe it was possible. It was a shock to the system. Just didn't imagine that they would dare There was an order about the Jewish nation. There was a sense that this was God's people. You don't go and destroy their temple. It's not something that you can do. And when the temple was destroyed, the floodgates opened for Jewish persecution for the next 2,000 years. It's kind of like, there was once my little boy Noah was climbing on the kitchen counter, and he was jumping off into my arms. And he's a bit of a crazy one, if you know my son. And he climbed up there really quickly, and I had my back turned, and he jumped anyway, assuming that, of course, my father's going to know and be able to turn around and grab me just as quickly, and he fell on the floor. And he was shocked. He was shocked. My father didn't catch me. He couldn't believe it. More than the pain that he felt landing on the floor, he felt a shock and a disappointment that his father wasn't there for him when he needed him. It's the same thing. There was the shock. How could God, who's with us, who loves us, who's on our side, allow this to happen? That's another element that we're going to kind of see in the Kinnot. It was unimaginable. Shattered the illusion. Shattered the illusion that again, if you read Josephus, and I recommend that you do, it's 2,000 pages, but it's worth the read. He talks about how the zealots in Jerusalem, the crazy zealots who would kill people that wanted to make peace, it's going to be okay. The Romans aren't going to be able to destroy the temple because God won't let them. God's on our side, not on theirs. And that shock, that waking up from a dream into a nightmare is part of the shock that we're talking about in these Kinnot. And worst of all, the feeling of the fact that we brought it on ourselves. Again, you read Josephus, the Romans did not want to destroy the temple. They weren't interested in it. It was the most stunning, gorgeous building for thousands of miles around. It wasn't something the Romans wanted to do. They weren't interested. They didn't want to go through the trouble of it. They didn't want the war. But in our arrogance, in our incredible arrogance, we brought it upon ourselves. Time and again, Titus, who was the Roman general at the time, made peace initiatives, gave the opportunity to give up. We'll treat you properly, we'll treat you well, we won't kill you. Jewish people didn't want to do it. In their arrogance, they said, we're not going to serve anybody but ourselves. Nobody runs our country, we're going to run it on our own. They wouldn't accept the inevitability of what was. And as a result, and again, it was just pure arrogance. They just said the temple was destroyed and 1 million Jews were murdered. And that's the greatest thing. The tragedies of Jewish history, for the most part, for entire part spiritually, we brought upon ourselves. But more than the temple, we mourn the Jewish people. We have our faults. There's no question about that. But in essence, we're decent and good people. General, we're peace-loving and kind. Scholars and saints, that's who we've been throughout the generations. And yet we've been slaughtered. Slaughtered like no other nation, like no other people. You look at the pictures of the Holocaust. You look at the faces of the people who were being murdered. They look like peaceful people. They're not soldiers. They're not killers. They're not brutal people. What have they done to you? Why would you want to kill them? What would they do to you? What could they do to you? There's a story, if you ever read the book To Vanquish the Dragon, and again, another fantastic book. If you want to read something on Tisha B'Av, I recommend that very highly. She talks about a man there who was, suffered. He lost his entire family. And he said to her, one of the most painful things of this for me is that even if I had the chance to take revenge against the Germans, I don't know how I'd do it. I just don't have it in me. I couldn't hurt another human being like that. That's the people that we're dealing with over. That's how the Jewish people have been, and yet they've murdered us and slaughtered us throughout the last 2,000 years and beyond. Torture, the sense of hatred, of violence, the gratification in the violence, all taken out on our nation, on our brothers and sisters, on our innocent children. That's the pain that we want to feel. Tisha B'Av, we want to feel the pain, 2,000 years of Jewish suffering. And in a certain way, it's a little bit easier this year. You know, we don't really know what it's been like to be a Jew in the past, what it's been like to be a Jew for the past 2,000 years, but I think maybe we're starting to get a flavor of it. You know, we're comfortable. We've been too comfortable with our nice homes, our air conditioning, our holidays. We've forgotten what it was like to be a Jew 60 years ago, what it was like to be a Jew 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, everything throughout our history, other than the generation that we've lived in. And there was no respite. There was no time off. There was no holidays from persecution. Like I say, though, we have a flavor today. We get a sense of what anti-Semitism could be like. We've lost 70 Jews in the past month. 70 of our youngest and brightest. We feel less safe on our streets here in the UK. Get a sense of what it was like in Europe 100 years ago. Just a sense. It's nothing like what it was. Let's pray that all we ever get is a sense. Tisha B'Av is the way to do that. Tisha B'Av is about feeling, identifying, remembering that these people that we've lost, these 70 young people, they're Jews, and their suffering is our suffering. The suffering of the 70 families in mourning is the suffering of our family. We've lost loved ones too. Their pain is our pain. That's Tisha B'Av. That's what Tisha B'Av is about, is stepping in there. Feeling that is not being callous, not being insensitive, being touched by the pain of the hundreds of families whose children have been injured in these past months, the thousands who don't sleep at night because they have a son fighting in Gaza. It's unimaginable. The sleepless nights. I think of my sons, if they were out there fighting in Gaza. I don't know how people do it. I don't know how you live with that. I don't know how you go through life when that's going on, when that's your family. And that's us. It is us. It's our family. We shouldn't be sleeping at nights. We shouldn't be sleeping at nights either. That pain is our pain. That fear is our fear. And that's Tisha B'Av is about connecting as a people. We're one nation. We're one single entity. We're one single unit. But it's more than that. It's the pain of the generations. On Tisha B'Av we mourn the pogroms, we mourn the inquisitions, we mourn the Holocaust, the blood libels, the crusades, the list goes on. The list goes on and on and on. And it's not just people, these are individuals. Each of us gets one life. You get one life in this world, you get one opportunity. And for those people that suffered, this was their life. And their life was a life of suffering and pain and brutal death. Could easily have been you and me. It still could be. There, but for the grace of God go I. We share their pain and we feel a part of the Jewish nation in doing so. If you don't feel the pain, you're disconnected. You're callous. You just don't care on a certain level. Kinnot is about feeling that pain. More than that, Tisha B'Av is to remind us also that there's something in human nature that just hasn't changed. You know, we say never again. It's a catchphrase of the Jewish people today. We think that if we teach people about the Holocaust, then they won't do it again. That's a good joke. We do good Holocaust education. We make sure the world knows if we fight off the Holocaust deniers, then of course it can't happen again. It's a non sequitur if ever I've heard one. Well, we think if we have a Jewish state and an army, well then that's going to stop it from happening again. What's the IDF going to do for you and me over here? They're struggling to defend themselves. You know, and Tisha B'Av is about pointing in the direction that we have nowhere to turn but God. It's not any place to look, it's not any place to go. People say anti-Semitism is on the rise. Let me tell you something. It never went into decline. It's simply dormant. It's ready to awaken at any moment, and Tisha B'Av is there again to remind us of that. There's a lot on this day. There's a lot to remember, there's a lot to focus on, there's a lot to be conscious of. We Jews always needed to sleep with one eye open. And as I say, this year that's more apparent than ever. Our future doesn't feel quite secure as it did this time last year. And that's a good thing, because it wakes us up to being real, to knowing that we have a responsibility and an obligation in this world. And finally, and we're going to start with the Kinnot themselves, this is the deepest pain of all. This is the essence of what Tisha B'Av really is about. We mourn what we call the Hesed Panim, the fact that God has hidden his face, God has turned away from the Jewish people. And we live in a lost generation. The secular world, but the frum world is following fast on its heels. Drugs, alcohol, suicide. People have nothing to live for. That's the deepest pain of all. That's the greatest suffering. Living a life with nothing to live for, meaninglessness, emptiness, lostness, is the greatest of human pains. That's what we call Hesed Panim. There's just no sense of connection. There's just no sense of God being with us. If you don't feel God in the world, you feel ultimately meaningless. And we're at the tail end of 2,500 years of that. And it leads to violence. It leads to breakdown of marriage. You look at the way marriages break down nowadays, almost 50% divorce rate, and the hatred and the suffering that couples go through when they get divorced. By 2016, they say in this country, over 50% of children will be born out of wedlock. People have given up on marriage. The mental illness and suffering that goes along with that, the despair, that's all Hesed Panim. That's all part of God hiding his face. If we felt God in our lives, if we felt a sense of connection, none of that would be there. We look around and you see despair everywhere. The real exile is the exile of the Jewish people from God. When we came back to Israel in 1948, we didn't return from exile because we didn't return to God. God is the place we are exiled from. That exile exists just as strongly as it's existed for the past 2,000 years. That's the essence of what Tisha B'Av is about, is that recognition of that pain. The pain is that we as a nation have forgotten who we are, what we are. We've forgotten, we stood at Mount Sinai and we said that we will be a light to the nations, we will be a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. We've forgotten that. Forgotten that completely. Forgotten that entirely. That's the pain that we've lost that, the pain that we've lost the identity, we've lost that sense of connection. And the truth was, when we had a temple, that didn't happen so easily. Because when you lost the sense of connection, when you lost the sense of feeling to God, you went to the temple. You went to the holy place. You went to and the wall is nothing. If you feel connected at the wall and you feel holiness at the wall, the temple was 1,000 times more than that. It was a place where the smoke from the offerings went straight to heaven, even in a hurricane, and a monsoon wouldn't put out the fires on the altar. They crammed in for the services on the festivals, and yet when they bowed down, there was plenty of space. Miracles, daily miracles. You would go and you would see daily miracles. You couldn't help but feel connected over there. You couldn't help but wake up to something deeper. It was a refuge from the craziness of the world, where you could refresh spiritually and come back with renewed strength, ready for another battle. All that's gone. Gone, destroyed, disappeared. We don't have in our lives anymore. This is the tragedy that we mourn above all else. And through mourning today, we hope that we wake up tomorrow ready to do something about it. And that's the essence. We don't just mourn and cry and walk away. We mourn and cry and hope that it changes us, and that we take some level of responsibility and want to make changes and want to do something about that. So we're going to say 8 Kinos all together. 5 relating to the temple. And the purpose of the Kinnot, like I say, is to feel the pain, but you know, if you don't, you don't. That's what it is. Do your best. But it's okay, we're human beings. We're going to go slow, no hurry. On Tisha B'Av, at least, we feel there's nowhere to go, nothing to do, we're just lost in the pain. Got till 9:30 tonight, 9:45 tonight. You know, can't learn Torah, you're not meant to do anything that distracts you from the day. So, you know, might as well just kind of take it slow and take it easy. If it's a bit monotonous, it's meant to be. That helps you get in the mood. So the first Kinnot here, Kinnot 16, is alphabetized, I believe. It says in my notes that it is. Yeah, it is. Not the first letter of every word, but there is an alphabetization in there. And it's about the destruction of the temple. You know, on Yom Kippur, it mentions in here that on Yom Kippur, that the Holy of Holies in the temple, the high priest would go in there on Yom Kippur, and if he was not completely pure, if he was not completely perfect in his holiness, he would die. He would die from the overwhelming spiritual experience that the Holy of Holies offered. So there was a sense of confidence that if the non-Jews, Titus, this evil man, walked in there, he would die straight away. Titus came in and he lived. It's if to say there's no holiness left in this place. The holiness is gone. That pain, that sense of loss of God's presence, that God walked away. So anybody can come in here now, because there's nothing special left about the place. We say that the curtain in front of the Holy of Holies, Titus came and he stuck his sword into it, and it bled. Blood came out. I always give this example every year, but I have a friend who's a Holocaust survivor, and he said he was in the Sonderkommando in Auschwitz. I'm not going to get too graphic here because I know we have some kids, my kids in particular, I think, but he arrived at Auschwitz in Greece. He didn't know what was going on. They'd had no experience of the Holocaust until then. Just wasn't like Poland, where they'd been in the ghettos and they had a flavor of what it was like. He arrived on a train in Auschwitz. They sent him straight to the gas chambers, and he saw the whole transport that he was with. They took them in. They closed the doors. He said they opened the doors a few minutes later, and he looked in and he couldn't believe what he saw. He said it was just his mind couldn't take it in. His head could not accept what his eyes were seeing. It was impossible. So it took him days before he believed what he was seeing in front of him. That same sense is a feeling over here. How could this be? How's this possible? Why didn't you stop this, God? It's easy to blame God, but for God to do this, there has to be something very wrong in the Jewish people, and that's what we want to remember over here. So we're going to say this one in Hebrew together. You can say it along with me in the Hebrew, or you can say it in the English as well, whatever you feel comfortable with. Zachor asher asatsa bifnim, shalaf chalboi, uva lifnai v'lifnim, nachlaseinu be'eis, timei lechem aponim, v'gide pareiches v'ala shtei fonim, yisoymim giel b'magin adam, yimaded kav b'madei adam dam, mimeinu dalach, v'hishkir chitza midam, ki yotze min habayis v'chalvoi malei adam, al hagoyso yahavois gaver, v'nota el yadoi lemuloi legaver, mitzayim v'chol la'oim imba gaver, ani b'soich v'uyai arutzei lav v'tzavar, avoiseinu zara, v'echnisu b'churav achla eish. V'zeh zayin atzaya v'echnis, lo'nich v'reish. Kodim Chita B'Soichoi Labas Eish V'Almeh B'Beis Eish Mimarim Shalach Eish V'Nafshenu Tavu Kahoitzi Klei Shaleis V'Samam Ba'ani Shayet Bam Li Shaleis Ireinu Nama Kehishkim V'Meshareis V'Loi Matzah Tishim U'Shloisha Klei Shaleis Nashim Kishalu Kiva Alitz V'Kaka Bayis Na'alav Hechalitz Salem Lukasu Kavoy Falitz V'Beis Kodesh HaKadoshim Zachav Nasai Hishritz V'Achulim V'Achutz Tzagu M'Chuzakim V'Salu Ki Yuzak V'Shishim Riboy Mazikim Skeinim Nivasu Kirshuhu Mishrakim Asoisu Tzainai V'Hu Asal Mazikim Shabbos Tzaitei V'Yav Yadmoin V'Yisabei V'Choyma V'Yavei Samoin Nafla Evra Al Ninei Pizze Lach V'Luz V'Almoin Ad Kinutash Midoi Almoin Pesach Al Abayis Hachel Avoy V'Yad Abba Rashim Tavsav Lachlivoy Al Tzad Malavi L'Zeicher History Boy V'Tzag Achet Pasleinu V'Loi Lavi Boy Ata Katzavta V'Hir Sheisa L'Fanois Yuladim Asher Ein Behem Kol Mu'um V'Sham Lahafnois Lama Lakshu Goyim V'Loi Shata El Hamincha Pinois V'Shilchum V'Eretz Utz V'Shalosh V'Nois Ashivenu Shiv'u Kava'u B'Nifcheyam V'Shitfu Atzmam Yachad Limkol Bayam Shir V'Sishbachoi Shoyru Ka'al Yam Yalecha Ragnu V'Mitzulos Yam Kizoi Moisba'u Ad Nafsham Kol Zois V'Asnu V'Loi Shechachvanu Chilu L'ma Moshon Tikvasam Nasnu L'meishiv Mibashan Vas Kail Nishma Ura Lama Sishan. Okay, the second Kinnot. I'm going to say this one in English. Not always aware of the extent of...
Sorry
yeah.
to interrupt, but some people are throwing books, so I just thought you might want to announce the number.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Kinnot number 17. Kinnot number 17 in this book. Number page 232, assuming you got the same book as me. Starts Im Teichalna Nashim. I'm not always aware of the brutality of the Romans. This talks about some of it. They tied live people to horses' tails by their hair and had the horses run around until the person was dead. Babies hung on trees to die. Children's brains smashed out and gathered together for fun. It's it's horrific experiences the Jewish people went through with the Romans. Famine, women eating their own children. If you read Josephus, I always used to think that when it says that women ate their children in the siege, that was when after their children had died. But you read Josephus and you see they killed their children to eat them. They didn't wait until they were dead. And the very end, and I think it's particularly relevant today, it's amazing how things don't change. It says very clearly at the end of this Kinnot that the Jewish children, Jewish women eating their children was on the front page of the Roman Times. Front page of the Roman Times, look at how brutal the Jews are. Their women eat their children. And the fact that the Romans murdered children wasn't even mentioned. That was at the very end of it all. And you see it today. You know, how many civilians have died in Gaza? Everybody knows. You can't miss that number. That number's updated daily in Times Square. You know, everybody's clear on that. How many civilians have died in Syria? Anybody know? Since the start of the civil war there? How many civilians have died there?
200,000.
Yeah, about 200,000. 200,000 civilians in Syria. You ever heard of that? Anybody interested in that? Anybody care about that? Anybody mention it? Do you see it on the newspapers? Do you see them screaming and shouting about it? On the BBC? Nobody says a word. 2,000 years ago, nothing's changed. Okay, we're going to say this one in English. You have to excuse me, I'm getting a bit old here and doing some glasses. If it could happen that women ate the fruits of their own womb, the babes of their care, alas unto me. If it could happen that compassionate women cook their own children whom they have so carefully measured handbreadth by handbreadth, alas unto me. If it could happen that the locks of their hair were torn from their heads when they were tied by their hair to fleet horses, alas unto me. If it could happen that the tongue of the nursing babe would adhere to its palate through unmitigated thirst, alas unto me. If it could happen that one mother cried out to another, come, let us cook our screeching children, alas unto me. If it could happen that after devouring one of their babies, the two met, and the mother of the eaten child said, give your son, but he was already cut to pieces and hidden away for his mother to enjoy alone, alas unto me. If it could happen that fathers' flesh was waiting for their sons to eat in caves and ditches, alas unto me. If it could happen that daughters were condemned to die in their mother's bosom, swollen with hunger, alas unto me. If it could happen that the spirits of infants soared heavenward from their swollen corpses, which were lying in the city's streets, alas unto me. If it could happen that women were weighed down by miscarriage of womb and dryness of breast, and that mother lamented over dying sons, alas unto me. If it could happen that 800 young Kohanim who bore decorative gold shields were trapped in Arabia, they fell to foul decay, alas unto me. If it could happen that their breath was set on fire with a variety of salty foods and they died while trying to drink from wine skins deviously inflated with hot stale air, alas unto me. If it could happen that they were decimated from 1,000 to 100, from 100 to 10, until but one remained, source of terrible sorrow, alas unto me. If it could happen that 80,000 fledgling priests fled, sheltering the sanctuary, alas unto me. If it could happen that all these souls were burned there like dry thorn cuttings, alas unto me. If it could happen that 80,000 anointed priests were beheaded of the innocent blood of Zechariah, alas unto me. If it could happen that the souls of starving defenders were stolen and stricken by tantalizing aromas of the fruits of the field that they could not attain, alas unto me. If it could happen that heaped on one stone were 9 cab measures of children's brains, alas unto me. If it could happen that 300 suckling babes were hung to die, stretched out on a single branch, alas unto me. If it could happen that delicate, pampered women were seen in iron chains under the hand of the chief butcher, alas unto me. If it could happen that daughters of distinguished royalty took their rest on the open roadsides, alas unto me. If it could happen that young maidens and young men fainted from a dehydrating thirst, alas unto me. But the Holy Spirit raged back at them. Woe unto all my wicked neighbors. Those tragedies which befell them they publicize, but the evil which they perpetrated they did not publicize. If it happened that women ate the fruit of their own womb, they let it be heard. But if it happened that they murdered a prophet priest in God's sanctuary, they did not let it be heard. Next Kinnot is Kinnot number 19. Starts Lachar Hashem Atzedakah. I'm going to do this one in Hebrew, and this is a very general Kinnot that I think speaks for itself. You Hashem have done righteousness. You Hashem have been good to us, have been kind to us, have been loving to us. Every step along the way, we have only repaid you with ingratitude. And there's a what's it called? There's a kind of a comparison between the two things. You gave us manna, we complained. You gave us the Torah, we built a golden calf. You fought wars for us, we didn't want to enter the land of Israel. You won the battle in Jericho, we plundered the booty when you told us not to do it. Israel today, it's given to us. God gave us a beautiful gift of Israel if we made it into a holy country. It ends saying that the common theme, that the exile ended after 70 years because Daniel davened, because Daniel prayed, because the Jewish people did tshuva. The first exile ended because the Jewish people returned to God. Our exile, in this particular Kinnot, was written 1,000 years ago. It says the exile is already 900 years old. Now it's 2,000 years. We still haven't got the message. We still haven't got the point. L'cho Adonai Atzedaka, ba'osei seshef leisa mi'oz v'yadata, v'lanu boishes aponim, b'vachina asher nisafnu, oisanu tiavta. L'cho Adonai Atzedaka, b'koi mikerev koi latachas b'masois, v'lanu boishes aponim, b'doifi asher nimsavanu, masei amasois. L'cho Adonai Atzedaka, b'halchu Elohim liftois leilam, V'lanu boishes apanim, v'aymalu al yam, v'yam suf koi v'elo yahav v'fasham. L'cho Adonai Atzedaka b'zeichet, v'atem adei v'ani Elohim, v'lanu boishes apanim, v'chalfeinu Adonai b'sin, v'maseh lanu Elohim. L'cho Adonai Atzedaka, v'tam shitam tonu, v'tzapichis, v'dvash. V'lanu boishes apanim, v'yoyim hikravnu l'fonav soiles v'shem nidvash. L'cho Adonai Atzedaka b'chilku manu v'el v'amud anan. V'lanu boishes apanim, v'lechem hakloikel avoseinu ba'ahaleihem b'ragnan. L'cho Adonai Atzedaka v'midbar loichasanu davar. V'lanu boishes apanim. Yatzei Slavan v'chatzeiros v'dei zahav v'medubar L'cho Adonai Atzedaka v'sichim v'oi v'chol mamlechos Canaan V'lanu boishes apanim ba'achar asher ma'al b'cherem v'lim etzoyim ma'am L'cho Adonai Atzedaka v'foyel asher pa'alta ba'al ba'asam moishim V'lanu boishes apanim b'tzelem micha k'voy anachnu poishim L'cho Adonai Atzedaka b'kima shilai b'nai v'givon v'vayis elamim V'lanu boishes apanim v'resha asher nimtza banu shechalvu ba'ovam anu nichlamim L'cho Adonai Atzedaka b'shnei chulbanos shechalvu v'tzeinu v'anachnu kayamim V'lanu boishes apanim b'shuveinu elecha b'chol leiv shetashu v'eleinu v'lachnim L'cho Adonai Atzedaka b'shamei oshana shahaisa sina kavusha milashama V'lanu boishes apanim kasava ish chamudais Hatei Elohai aznecha u'shma. Number 23. My sin caused the destruction of the temple. It starts. Do this one in English. It's the story of Rabbi Shaul, the last high priest of the Jewish people. They say that he was one of the most good-looking men that ever existed in the history of the world. He was also one of the 10 martyrs that we're going to read about soon. It was a royal family, royal Jewish family, a family of high priests. And yet this is what they came to. This is what they, and it's just an example of the fall of the Jewish people. The story is that there were two masters. Each one was taken. His two children, his son and his daughter, were taken slaves by two different Roman masters, and each one was incredibly good looking, obviously, because they were the children of this Rabbi Shaul. And one Roman, well, you'll see it in the story, but one Roman says to the other, I have this very beautiful slave, and the other says, I have this very beautiful slave. They say, let's get them together and they'll have beautiful children. They put them in a room together and it's dark and they don't know who each other is, but neither wants to break their values and break down their moral and ethical values, and so they don't touch each other. And they wake up in the morning and they see who each other is, and they die with broken hearts. My sin caused the desecration of my temple, so I shall cause my tears to run down my cheeks, and on this day I shall raise a doleful lament. I shall moan about this each year. The heart mourns, yet refuses consolation. From all other pain is my pain set apart. On the fate of the son and daughter of Rabbi Shaul Rosenblatt, I shall set their memories afire in my heart, and I shall moan about this each year on this day. When they were captured, they fell to two different masters, who were neighbors dwelling across from one another. They discussed their affairs between themselves. One said, "From the captivity of Zion I have captured a maid servant dressed in scarlet wool, her features as bright as the moon, as beautiful as Keziah and Jemimah. I shall moan about this each year on this day." His neighbor responded with double those praises. "I too have come from the captivity of Jerusalem. I captured a manservant with eyes so beautiful as the sun in its full splendor at high noon. Come, let us pair them and divide between us their children, who will be abundant to the stars of the heavens. These tidings all ears will ring. To commemorate this, I shall rend my robe. I shall moan about this each year on this day." Once the two of them had approved the plan, they paired brother and sister together that evening in one room. The masters waited outside, their hearts as one. But the young couple wept with bitter soul and fear. Their weeping was not stilled until the morning, and I shall moan about this each year on this day. He mourned all a tremble inside, his heart was melting. A scion of Aaron, can he be wed to a maidservant? While she also bemoaned her captor's deal, a daughter of Yocheved, can she be wed to a slave? Woe, for this is the decree of God, who says something and does it. Upon this tragedy, even the constellations Ursa, Orion, Pleiades weep. I shall moan about this each year on this day. With the light of dawn they recognized one another. They intensified their cries, "Woe, brother, and woe, sister." They embraced each other and were cleaved together, till both their souls left them in the very same breath. I shall moan about this each year on this day. For this Jeremiah lamented amidst the destruction. I shall weep continually, and my heart has kindled a flame and a burn. For this son and daughter I will thunder forth a great lament. I shall lament as I speak, and I shall moan, and I shall raise the sound of lament. Okay, a couple more. It's the last one about the temple that we're going to do. It's number 31. Starts Eish Tukad Bekirbi. It's a contrast between the two. Contrast between when we left Egypt with joy and happiness and hope for the future, and when we left Jerusalem with pain and suffering and abandoned to the slaughter. Feasting when we left Egypt, celebration, fasting and mourning when we left Jerusalem. Ends with one line of hope that when we return to Jerusalem at the very end. Eish tukad bekirbi ba'aloisi alibi b'tzeisi Mitzrayim. Kinem ha'yida laman azkira b'tzeisi Yerushalayim. Az Yashir Moshe shir lo yinashe b'tzeisi Mitzrayim. B'kainen Yirmiyah v'noha nehi neya b'tzeisi Yerushalayim. Beisi koinan v'shachan ha'anam b'tzeisi Mitzrayim. B'chamas el shechana alai ba'ka'anana b'tzeisi Yerushalayim. Gala yam ramu v'chachayim akamu b'tzeisi Mitzrayim. Zedudim shatafu v'al roishi tzafu b'tzeisi Yerushalayim. Dagan shamayim mitzur yezuvu mayim b'tzeisi Mitzrayim. La'ana m'roirim mayim hamarim b'tzeisi Yerushalayim. Hashkem v'alev s'vivos ha'chayle b'tzeisi Mitzrayim. Chayle el-evel al naharis b'avel b'tzeisi Yerushalayim. U'malek void Adonai ke'esh ha'cheles lefonav b'tzeisi Mitzrayim. V'chev l'tusha v'tevach l'tusha b'tzeisi Yerushalayim. Zevach u'mincha v'shemen ha'mishcha b'tzeisi Mitzrayim. Sugula el'knucha k'tzoyin l'tivcha b'tzeisi Yerushalayim. Chagim u'shabasais u'mofsim v'oiseis b'tzeisi Mitzrayim. Tanis Ve'eva, L'Doifa Cheva, Seisim Yerushalayim. Tavu Halim La'ad V'Galim B'Seisim Mitzrayim. V'Ale Yishmeilim V'Machanoi Sareilim B'Seisim Yerushalayim. Yovel Shmita Be'eretz Shoikeita B'Seisim Mitzrayim. Machal Tzmisus V'Chalus V'Chasus B'Seisim Yerushalayim. Kapos V'Arayin V'Avnei Zikarayin B'Seisim Mitzrayim V'Avnei Kalei V'Chlei Abala B'Seisim Yerushalayim. Levim V'Arayinim V'Shimon Zekeinim B'Seisim Mitzrayim. Noixim Umaynim Umaychim V'Kainim B'Seisim Yerushalayim. Moshe Yireinu V'Aaron Yancheinu B'Seisim Mitzrayim. Nebuchadnezzar V'Andrianus Caesar B'Seisim Yerushalayim. Nalet Milchama V'Adonai Shama B'Seisim Mitzrayim. L'Achak Mimenu V'Hine Einenu B'Seisim Yerushalayim. Sisei Faleches V'Sidzei Maleches B'Seisim Mitzrayim. Chema Mniteches V'Alei Seicheches B'Seisim Yerushalayim. Oilos V'Achem V'Ishei Nechoichim B'Seisim Mitzrayim. V'Cherev Medukarev B'nei Tzion HaYikarev B'Seisim Yerushalayim. Ka'arei Mikba'is L'Chavoi Nikba'is B'Seisim Mitzrayim. Shrikais Usuais Ukoilois Uzuais B'Seisim Yerushalayim. Tzitzazav V'Hamshel V'Lahav B'Seisim Mitzrayim. Ishlich HaNezer V'Afar HaEzer B'Seisim Yerushalayim. Kedusha Nevuah V'Chavod Adonai Nira B'Seisim Mitzrayim. Nigala Umayra V'Luach HaTuma B'Seisim Yerushalayim. Rina V'Yeshua V'Chatzotzei Satzua B'Seisim Mitzrayim. Zakas Oilal V'Nakas Chalal B'Seisim Yerushalayim. Shulchan U'Menayla V'Chalel V'Tayla B'Seisim Mitzrayim. Elil V'Sayeva U'Fesel Mitzeva B'Seisim Yerushalayim. Tayla U'Su'uda U'Chlei Achemda B'Seisim Mitzrayim. Sasa V'Simcha V'Nas Yaga V'Anacha V'Shuvi L'Yerushalayim. Okay. Sixth Kinnot. It's the last one in this, well, second to last one in this book. It's number 21. The 10 Martyrs, famous one that we read on Tisha B'Av, we read it on Yom Kippur as well. 10 great men of the Jewish people, old men, holy men, men of peace. Rabbi Akiva, the greatest scholar in Jewish history. Rabbi Shmuel, who we mentioned before, the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, the last high priest of the Jewish people. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, the Nasi, the prince, the holy prince of the Jewish people. The great man, Rabbi Hanani ben Tradian, burnt in his Torah scroll for teaching Torah, nothing else. That was his crime. We'll do it in English. And then we're going to finish up after this. One more on the Holocaust. What time was it?
After 11.
11, okay, we're doing well. Cedars of Lebanon, giants of Torah, shield carriers of Mishnah and Gemara, powerful warriors exerting themselves over impurity. Their blood was spilled and their greatness removed from us. Behold, they are the holy 10 martyrs executed by the Roman government. And for these do I weep and my eye overflows. When I remember this, I scream in bitterness. The most desirable in Israel, the holy vessels, crown and tiara, pure of heart and consecrated, they suffered a harsh death. They cast lots to determine who to put to the sword first. When the lot fell on Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, he stretched out his neck and wept as the decree was issued. The overlord, with soul steeped in evil, turned to slay Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shmuel the Kohen Gadol, the sign of Aaron, asked permission to cry over this son of royalty. He took Rabbi Shimon's severed head and placed it on his lap and lamented, O pure menorah. He placed his eyes upon his eyes and his mouth upon his mouth in absolute love. He cried out and said, O mouth has strengthened itself in Torah. How suddenly a violent and cruel death was inflicted upon you. He ordered them to strip the skin off Rabbi Shmuel's head with a sharp razor. With his skin he fulfilled the prophecy. They, the enemy, said to your soul, prostrate yourselves that we may walk over you. When the wicked one who flayed him reached the place of the tefillin, the brilliant mitzvah, he let out such a scream that the whole world quaked and the earth crumbled into little pieces. After him they brought forth Rabbi Akiva, who uprooted mountains and ground them one against the other by thorough analysis. They combed his flesh with an iron comb in order to break him. His soul departed while he declared, God is one, and the heavenly voice proclaimed, fortunate to you, Rabbi Akiva. Your body has been purified with every type of purity. After him they brought forth Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, a man of a humble heart, scrupulous in avoiding sin. He was killed at age 70 by the hands of the cursed nation. He was immersed in fasting, clean and pious, alacritus in his service. Rabbi Chanina ben Tradian came after him, condemned because he assembled crowds to study Torah within the gates of Zion. While he sat with a Torah scroll and taught, they surrounded him with bundles of vines. They set them on fire and wrapped him in the Torah scrolls from which he taught. They placed tufts of water-soaked wool in his heart, so that he would not die quickly. The pious one, Rabbi Shaul the scribe, was killed by the descendants of Sodom and Amorah. They threw him down and flung him to the dogs, so he was not buried in a proper grave. A heavenly voice went forth and said that he did not fail to observe any detail of the Torah of Moses. And after him on the day of wrath they killed Rabbi Chutzpis, taught Torah with such fiery zeal, the bird flying above him will be burnt by the breath of his mouth, as if on the altar pyre. The righteous Rabbi Elazar ben Shmuel was the last. He was killed by stabbing. It was on Friday, as the day turned to the Holy Sabbath, so he began the Kiddush, and recited the opening passage. They unsheathed the sword over him, did not allow him to live to finish it. His soul departed with the words which God created, thereby acknowledging him as the Creator who fashioned every creature's form. Again and again in this manner, sons of iniquity continue to torture us with abuse, with stoning, burning, beheading, and strangling. Who can calculate the enormity of the tragedy? What remained of it? The scattered flock the lions consumed, and the breast of the waving, and the thigh of the raising up. The lion and his daughter torn to pieces. May Hashem show his benevolence to us, and never again make us suffer. Strengthen the faltering knees, O you who are Jacob's portion, and his Savior in times of distress. For the sake of righteousness, he God shall reign as king. He will say to Israel, the days of your mourning have come to an end, and then we'll venture forth and walk in his light. Okay, one last Kinnot here. Actually, there's one that we sing at the end as well, but the Holocaust. And I think this is the most relatable for us. We can almost touch it, feel it. There's still people alive who went through it. Rabbi Spy will speak next after this. It's the rawest wound. It's still a little bit of an open wound for the Jewish people. In some way it hurts the most. I'm not going to say too much about it because we're going to have films. There was a film last night. We have a survivor speaking today. We're going to read the first Holocaust Kinnot. We'll read it in English. It was written by the Bobover Rebbe. The Bobover Rebbe lost everything in the Holocaust. He went through the Holocaust himself. He lost his family. Lost tens of thousands of students. Incredible personal tragedy for him, not just a national tragedy, but on a very personal level. He went through this tragedy, and is somebody who very much is able to write about it with meaning and with a sense of what it's about. Let's read it together. Remember, please, and memento all of Israel. Everyone got it? On page 384. Let your voices be heard on high, for Germany has destroyed our people during stormy days of the World War. With killings horrible and cruel, with starvation and thirst for all generations, do not forget, until you are met at witnessing the ultimate consolation. Remember their screams and their weeping as they were tightly packed and locked into the train's cattle cars. Like sheep to the slaughter, they were led to be incinerated in the crematorium ovens. May the sound of their pleading cries be eternally remembered by the one who dwells in the heavens. When they proclaimed Shema Yisrael, they offered up their lives to the Lord of Lords. Rosh Yeshiva and their students and the multitudes of your people who were there. They enslaved them with brutal tortures. They slaughtered them with high-handed arrogance. The blood of tender babes cries out to you from the earth, saying, exact vengeance for the children and the women. Let no living soul escape alive. For the burning of thousands of study halls and synagogues. For the myriad Torah scrolls and their students. We shall lament with raised and screaming voices. They set God's sanctuaries aflame, they ignited them. And our eyes witnessed this. Let those who lit the fire suffer retribution. May God judge the corpse-filled nations. Cry out loud, O heaven and earth, for the thousands of cities, citadels of Torah, for the countries of Europe and their Jewish communities, the heirs and trustees of our tradition, for righteous tzaddikim, elders, pious chassidim, all those who cleaved unto a faith so pure. From the day we were exiled from our homeland, there was never an annihilation as awesome as this. Be compassionate with our remnant. Look down upon us, please, from heaven. The death camps of the martyrs, 10 times as many as those who left Egypt. Rebuild our holy temple and provide us with double consolation. Exalt us and bring us back to Zion and Jerusalem. Just gonna do one reading that I like to do on Tisha B'Av, and then we're going to do the last Kinnot, which is going to be Elit Sion, which is on number 45 on page 390. I'll talk about that when we come to it. Just going to read this from it's a poem. Every year I mention this poem and I say I highly recommend to read it. Read it. Great thing to read on Tisha B'Av. I have a copy of it in my office. I think I've got 2 copies of it actually. Somewhere. Might be at home, but I got copies somewhere. It's written by Yitzhak Katz-Nelson, who was somebody who died in the Holocaust. He was a Jew from Łódź, and he was in the Łódź ghetto. And then he escaped to Warsaw. He was in the Warsaw ghetto, and his wife and child were taken to Treblinka and murdered there in 1942. And then he was in the Warsaw ghetto uprising, and he fought in the ghetto and managed to survive. And then he was taken to France, to a concentration camp in France, and in the end he died in Auschwitz in 1944. But he wrote this poem called The Song of the Murdered Jewish People. He wrote it in 1944 in France. And it was a time when you see other poems like this in the Holocaust. He hid it, he buried it under in the ground, in the earth, and it was found after the Holocaust. But it was a time when, we don't get this sense from the Holocaust because we look at it with hindsight. We look back and you kind of see in perspective. But for people in the Holocaust, it looked to them as though that was it, as though that was the end of the Jewish nation, as though it was all going to end there, as though the Germans were going to carry out what they wanted to do. You just saw community after community slaughtered and wiped out in their entirety. And the feeling was there that there was just no hope. There was just no future for the Jewish people. This was the end of the road. You get a sense of that in his poem here. I'm just going to read one little bit of it. This particular part of the poem is talking about when most of Warsaw had been sent to Treblinka. Most of the Jewish community had already been sent to Treblinka. And now the Nazis wanted more. Now they were asking for more. And he went to an orphanage. And went to an orphanage in Warsaw. He's talking about the children that he saw in that orphanage. So he says, the first to perish were the children, abandoned orphans, the world's best, the bleak earth's brightest. These children from the orphanages might have been our comfort. From these sad, mute, bleak faces, our new dawn might have risen. At the end of the winter of 42, I was in such a place. I saw children just brought in from the street. I hid in the corner and I saw a 2-year-old girl in the lap of a teacher, thin, deathly pale, with such grave eyes. I watched this 2-year-old grandmother, the tiny Jewish girl, 100 years old, in her seriousness and in her grief. What her own grandmother could not dream, she had seen in reality. I saw a 5-year-old girl in that home. She fed her younger crying brother. She dipped hard breadcrumbs in watery marmalade and got them cleverly into his mouth. I was lucky to see it, to see the 5-year-old mother feeding him, and to hear her words. My mother, exceptional though she was not as eloquent. A little Jewish girl, she wiped his tear with her laughter and talked him into joy. I saw it. They, the Jewish children, were the first to perish, all of them. Almost all without father or mother, eaten by cold, hunger, and vermin. Saintly messiahs, sanctified by pain. Oh, why such punishment? Why were they the first to pay so high a price to evil in the days of slaughter? They were the first taken to die, the first in the wagon. They were flung into the big wagons like heaps of dung, were carried off, killed, exterminated, not a trace remained of my precious ones. Woe unto me, woe unto me. And just a second reading from that poem. He talks here of what the Jews brought to Europe. We contributed so much to the countries of Europe. We helped build them, we helped create them, we helped make them what they were. Poland in particular, the Jews gave so much of their heart and soul to that country. He talks about the difference they made and the loss to Europe without the Jews. Says the end. At night the sky is aflame. By day the smoke coils, and at night it blazes out again, lighter, like our beginning in the desert. Pillar of cloud by day, a pillar of fire by night. Then my people march with joy and faith to a new life. Now the end, all is finished. All of us on earth have been killed, young and old. We've all been exterminated. Why? Oh, don't ask why. Everybody knows. All Gentiles, good and bad. The worst help the Germans. The best close one eye, pretending to be asleep. No, nobody will demand a reckoning, a probe, ask why. Our blood is free, it may be shed, it may be killed and murdered with impunity. Amongst the Poles, they looked for freedom fighters, only those suspected of patriotism. They murdered many Russians in villages and towns, partisans. But amongst us, they killed babies in their cribs, even the unborn. They led us all to Treblinka. Before killing, turned to us and said, get undressed here, put your clothes in order, shoes in pairs, leave your belongings. You'll need your clothes, shoes, and other personal effects. You'll soon be back. You just arrived from Warsaw, Paris, Prague, Saloniki. Take a bath. 1,000 enter the hall. 1,000 wait naked until the first 1,000 are dead. Thus they destroyed us from Greece to Norway, to the outskirts of Moscow. 6 million. Discounting Jewish children in wombs. Only the pregnant mothers are counted. And if Jews remain in faraway America and in nearby Israel, demand these children too from the world. Demand the murdered unborn children. Demand those gassed in their mothers' wombs. Why? No human being in the world asks why, yet all things do. Each vacant apartment in thousands of towns and cities asks why. Listen, listen. Apartments will not stay vacant, and empty homes will not remain empty. Another people is moving in, another language and a different way of life. Rising over Lithuanian or Polish towns, the sun will never find a radiant old Jew at the window reciting psalms or going to synagogue. On every road, peasants will welcome the sun in wagons going to market. So many Gentiles, more than ever. Yet the market is dead. It is crowded, yet it seems empty. Never will a Jew grace those markets and give them life. Never will a Jewish kapota flutter in the markets on sacks of potatoes, flour, and porridge. The drunken peasant will whip his horse sadly, return with his full wagon to the village. There are no more Jews in the land. And Jewish children will never wake in the morning from bright dreams, never go to cheder, never watch birds, never tease, never play in the sun. Oh, little Jewish boys, oh bright Jewish eyes, little angels, they are no more. Never will the voice of Torah be heard from the yeshivas. Never will a Jewish mother cradle a baby. Jews will not die or be born. Never will plaintive songs of Jewish poets be sung. All is gone, gone. Jews will fight or sacrifice no longer for others. They will no longer heal, soothe someone's pain, forgetting their own. Oh, you foolish Gentile, the bullet you fired at the Jew hit you too. Who will help you build your lands? Who will give to you so much of their heart and soul. Woe is unto me, nobody is left. There was a people, and is no more. There was a people, and is gone. What a tale. It began in the Bible, and it lasted till now. A very sad tale. A tale that began with a mallet, and concluded with the far crueler Germans. O distant sky, wider, vast seas, do not crush, and do not destroy the wicked. Let them destroy themselves. We're going to finish with the last Kinnot, illuminations, page 390. We're going to stand up for this one, and we sing it together in Hebrew. We don't sing the chorus again. We skip the chorus each time. Illuminations, v'yareha, k'mo yishav b'tzireha, v'hipsulach ha'gurasai. Page 150 in these books. We're going to skip Laminat Seyak. And we also skip a few words in Uvalet Sion. On page 154 we say Uvalet Sion go L'Shaveh Pesach B'Yakov Neum Hashem. Then you skip straight to V'Yatah Kadosh. So from the word Va'ani you don't say. Skip to V'Yatah Kadosh. We're going to start with Asher on page 150. Thank you.
Kedaish,